Have you ever noticed that sometimes the more you try to organize your life, the more chaotic it actually becomes? You know, you download the apps, you buy the planner, you make the lists, color code them, and suddenly you have systems for your systems. And somehow, nothing is actually getting done. And you know what? I found myself in that exact spiral after I retired. And what I eventually discovered changed the way I think about how life actually works. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Living on the Verge. Today, I want to talk about something that I've been noticing lately in my own life. And the idea is this: life has started to feel calmer, more manageable. And yet, if you look at it from the outside, not much has actually changed. I still live in the same house, same marriage, same family dynamics, still have the same responsibilities. But something about my days feels different. And I think I finally figured out why. It's because my life has slowly become a series of intentional sequences. Now, stick with me. Let me tell you how I stumbled into that realization. When I first retired from my day job, I had this vision in my head of finally getting my life organized. I thought, now I'll have the time. The birds will chirp, the sky will be blue, the windows will be bright and shiny, and everything will just magically fall into place. You know, the house will get organized, my office will get organized, my systems will get organized. All the things that had been sitting on the back burner while I was raising kids and going to basketball practice and working and running businesses would finally get sorted out. And what actually happened was the exact opposite. I went down this rabbit hole of planners and systems and productivity ideas and organization methods. I had notebooks from the dollar store, notebooks from Amazon, and boy, did I have lists. I made lists on each of those notebooks and any other place I could find to make a list, but I had lists. And then there were the apps. And don't even get me started on the calendars, the personal one, the podcast one, the family one, and then the whiteboard, my cockamamie idea to bring it all together. I had systems for my systems. Have you ever done this? You have 3 apps, 2 calendars, a dry erase board, and most of your time is spent updating them instead of actually doing the things on them. And there was this moment. I remember I was sitting in my office having a cup of coffee thinking, how the heck did I get this far in life? I've raised 4 kids, built businesses, run a pretty successful household, and yet I can't even get my office together. It was incredibly frustrating. But the worst part wasn't the mess. The worst part was realizing that while I was obsessing over getting everything organized, I was actually ignoring the parts of life that would make me happy. I was systematically organizing myself right out of my own happiness. And I was missing out. Things like my friendships, wine club, dates with my husband, the writing I enjoy, cooking, time with my family, even this podcast. You know, we live in a culture of productivity equals success. Go, go, go. Control everything, optimize everything. And I think other parts of the world do this way better than we do. Let's think about Europe, for example. They have traditions. Everything shuts down at 2 o'clock, and they have midday siesta or tea. And the idea that life isn't just about constant productivity. And eventually, after a lot of thought, I realized something important. Life wasn't waiting for me to perfectly organize it before I could start living it. And that's when something really interesting started to happen. Nothing huge in my life actually changed. I still had the same house, the same marriage, same family dynamics, same responsibilities. Dishes still need to get washed. Laundry still needs to get washed. The dogs still need to get fed. But something about my days started to feel calmer, somehow more manageable. And what started to change things wasn't one big plan. It wasn't like one day I found the perfect app or the perfect calendar or the perfect system. No, that wasn't what happened at all. In fact, it was way more simple than that. Way more obvious. It was just a few simple sequences that started repeating in my life. Almost by accident. It just became leaning into the things I knew I had to get done and peppering in the things I wanted to get done. And suddenly I started having these wonderful mornings filled with intentional sequences. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. What do I mean when I say intentional sequences? Well, let's define it. An intentional sequence is simply a small pattern of actions that repeat and support your life. And I'll tell you how intentional sequences play out in my life. For example, let's talk about my mornings. So I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is I make myself a cup of coffee. I refill my water, and before I drink my coffee, I make sure that I add my salt and I've been doing, instead of electrolyte packages, I've been doing Himalayan sea salt, a pinch of that in my water, along with the squeeze of lemon. And one of the other things that I did that is, I don't know, a little rough for me, if I'm being honest, I'm struggling with this change a little, is I've been reading more and more about how bad it is to have really cold water, especially at night. So I am trying to get used to having my water without ice. And so that's something I started this week, and it's whatever, it's fine. I miss ice, I'll be honest. But guess what? I'm doing what I need to do to optimize in every little area that I can. And so I digress. I fill my water, I get my coffee going, include all the supplements I put in my morning coffee, and then I sit down and I journal. I used to set a timer for 15 minutes, but I realize I don't need to now. I kind of have it down to the 10 to 15 minute time frame naturally. And so I just journal about whatever. And I remember telling you that recently I had started reading my Bible. So once I get done with my journaling, I set a 10-minute timer and I pick up the Bible, and wherever I left off, I read the Bible. And then after, I spend about 5 minutes just kind of reflecting and going back and making sure I understood this, that, or the next. And then if I am actively reading a book for book club, I do about a 10 to 15 minute timer and I read my book. And that sequence just seems to really help set the tone for my day. It reduces decision fatigue. What's decision fatigue? Waking up every day and trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How are we going to do it? All of that's already decided for me. And guess what, you guys? It's working. Because it's removing the pressure to reinvent my life every morning. I really get up and I enjoy my morning sequence. And when I was wondering a couple weeks back, why have I had these 3 or 4 days of complete and sheer pleasant happiness? Just a nice feeling of things are good right now. And why have I been able to piece together this chain of days consecutively? I realized it was my intentional morning sequence. And why is it working? Because it's removing the pressure to reinvent my life every single morning. Here's another example. It's my meal planning sequence. Every Saturday, as I'm sitting down having my coffee with my husband and after my natural morning sequence, I sit down and I plan our meals for the week. I make a menu. I make sure it's really high in protein, has a lot of veggies, and is really clean, good, whole food. And whenever possible, I try to buy organic and I try to buy grass-fed and wild-caught. I'm trying to do all of the good things. And then my husband goes to the regular grocery store, and if we need anything from the specialty store, I'll usually run out and do that. And sometimes I get back and do a little light prep, like boiling my eggs for the week or making the salad dressing that I'm going to be using in this week's coleslaw, or prepping the rub that I'm going to be using for both the chicken and the pork that we're having next week. Whatever the prep of the week is that helps make my life easier. And because of that simple sequence, dinners all week are easier. We eat better food, the stress goes down, we're certainly saving a ton of money. And you guys, even this podcast has its own natural sequence. I'm not afraid to share it with you. I'll tell you what it is. A moment happens in real life. I'm just living. A moment happens. Or I'm journaling. And something that I see or do or write sparks a thought. And that thought sparks an idea that becomes an episode. And eventually, that episode gets recorded. I'm not forcing content. I'm not depending on some outside influence or television show for content. I'm living first and reflecting second. And I'm happy to report that rhythm is working for me. But life can get really overwhelming. And I want to talk about why. I think a lot of people get stuck because they believe they need to overhaul their whole life. I mean, let's face it, that's what I was doing with all the systems and the calendars and the apps. I just figured if I could put everything in one perfect place, everything will be perfect. Create the perfect plan. Be productive all the time. I'm going to tell you guys something. Life isn't something you solve like a puzzle. I love this thought. Life isn't a puzzle. It's more like a rhythm. Take my health and wellness journey as an example. At one point, I thought, again, I need to overhaul everything. I need a coach, a trainer. I need this person to help me with my meals, my day planning, my supplements, my hormones, my everything. I need a strict routine, a whole new lifestyle. What the heck was I thinking? That was so overwhelming. What I actually needed was a rhythm. That might work, right? And here's the rhythm: walk, eat, lift, sleep, repeat. You see how simple that is? And so when you find a rhythm like that, suddenly it becomes sustainable, it becomes manageable, and dare I say, it can even become a little enjoyable. Yep, that's the truth, folks. And it gets me to thinking, well, why are all these sequences reducing the chaos in my life? Sequences reduce chaos because they reduce decision fatigue. I don't have to decide every single day what's for dinner. There's a menu. I just have to look at it, take it out of the freezer when I come home or when it's time to make dinner. It's all predetermined. And if I've done my prep, which I normally do, most of the things that would bog me down are already pre-made and waiting for me to just throw it all together. The same with the podcast. I don't have to sit and wreck my brain day after day. What am I going to talk about? And it's become the same with the system that I implemented with my mornings. My mornings are structured and I'm setting myself up for happiness, content, and peace in my day. Right from the jump. It's precious. It's priceless. Honestly, I'm really loving it. Without sequences, every day looks like this. What should I eat for breakfast? What should I eat for lunch? What should I work on today? Which problem am I going to tackle? What project needs my attention and just can't wait? It just feels like an elephant-sized problem. But with sequences, many of those decisions are already made. My week already has rhythms. I've got wine club day, book club days, gym days, podcast prep days, podcast recording days, date days, church days. My life becomes predictable. And that's not a bad thing. Predictability can actually be very peaceful. And as I'm going through all of these things and I'm unwinding and unpacking all of these thoughts that I'm having about this structure and this idea about intentional routines and structures in your life, I realize that is the golden ticket. Structure creates freedom. Here's the interesting part. You would think, especially after all of the efforts I put into trying to come up with cohesive routines and the frustration that I felt from the 15 different applications I was trying to use to come up with those routines, you would think that the routines would feel suffocating. But structure actually creates freedom for me because when the basics run smoothly, you tend to have space in your life for other things that make you happy, the things you want to do, friendships, that lunch with the old friend who just reached out, or creativity, that painting that you've really been wanting to finish, or just simple reflection. Journaling has been huge to me. And without my morning structure, I would not be journaling regularly. And then there's even time for just spontaneity. There's just simply more time. What a beautiful, precious idea, right? If you can structure some systems throughout your day, you're actually opening up more space in your day. It's just really fun. It's kind of great. And then I thought, okay, but I tend to get bored. Repetition can get really boring for me. I have a short attention span for things that get repetitive and mundane. And I don't want to build a life of just boredom and routine and repetition. But one of the things that I have come to terms with is that life is actually built in small repetitions. I mean, think about it. When we were back in school, we got up Monday through Friday. We went to school. We played at PE with the same friends. Chances are your parents probably gave you the same lunch day in and day out. And if you ate lunch at school, the cafeteria menu didn't change much either. There were built-in routines. Let's talk about the structure of the curriculum. All routines. What about what we did after school? It was a routine. Come home, have a snack, do your chores, do your homework, get ready for dinner. Oh, time to take a shower, rinse, repeat, and do it all over again. And then the weekends as a child were very much built in routine as well. Usually, if you were part of a larger family, there were chores and family outings and things like church and sports, all routine. And it's normal. It's regular. It is lifing in small, built-in repetitions. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret that I recently discovered. Big life changes rarely come from one big decision. They come from small habits, repeated moments, and they come from simple routines. Our friendships, they exist because we keep showing up. We're putting in the work. It's a routine. Marriage grows because we share daily life. Those are small, built-in repetitions. Sometimes something as simple as going for a brunch ride on a Harley with my husband fuels our connection for weeks. We feel closer, we laugh more. And even this podcast exists because there are consistent episodes built in small repetitions, routines. I wrote something in my journal recently that I keep thinking about, and I want to share it with you. It's this simple sentence. Life is imperfect with little moments of perfection sprinkled into the messiness. And that one sentence has been a catalyst for great change in my life. And so I just thought I would share it with you because sometimes one sentence could be powerful enough that it could affect change in a big, big way. But usually it takes a bunch of little moments of thought and putting it together. Maybe small repetitions. Anyway, here's the thing. When your life is built on intentional sequences, those little moments, they become easier to notice. And maybe life isn't something we figure out all at once. Maybe it's something we build slowly through little patterns that we repeat every day. Life isn't something to solve. You guys, it's something to live. And lately, I've been noticing that when those sequences are intentional, then life, it can start to feel a lot calmer, a lot more precious, a lot more pleasant and beautiful. Life isn't one big plan, you guys. It's just a series of intentional sequences. So next week, we'll be back with Bravo news, pop culture updates. I'll bring you family updates, including how Ezra is doing. Did I mention I'm in love? And we will have another segment of Winos on the Verge. Thanks so much for spending a little time with me today. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'll see you next time. And until then, I'll be right here, living on the verge. Bye.